every tack, jibe, sail raised, foil dipped. This is the October Recon report. As you know, I've got access to the Recon panel, and every month we'll be going through the data deposited there, picking through the details, pulling out the salient points so that we can distill it to you, tell the story of how these teams race to the cup. Quite an interesting month with all the teams now in the water in some shape or form. Let's start off by talking about Alinghi. First boat to the water, launched their B1 AC75 legacy boat. It's Alinghi, the Emirates Team New Zealand B1 from the previous America's Cup. So kind of old tech there. They launched on the 12th of August. The data accumulated here is from August through to the end of October. Subsequent months will be on a calendar month basis, but makes sense to aggregate it for this first period. So since August, 23 days on the water, sailing out of Barcelona, Spain. Time on the water, 80 hours, 65 manoeuvres, very few manoeuvres per hour and low success rate for foiling manoeuvres. Maybe to be expected of a new team, but also we can learn something about the conditions they're experiencing in Barcelona, either light winds or wavy conditions which are limiting their ability to hit those manoeuvres. Tech they've got on board, so I guess the big headline is they are A/B testing between American Magic's foil and Emirates Team New Zealand's T-foil. So testing a T-foil against an anhedral and a bulb against a kind of blended bulb. So an opportunity to capture some interesting data there for them. They also had some nods to the new rule when they launched. Lack of backstays, they'd removed the bowsprit, and recently they've moved to a boomless setup again, which mimics the Emirates Team New Zealand setup from the previous Cup, and it mimics what will be available on the AC40s. As of the end of October, they hadn't yet got sailing on that. So challenges, there's been a few, as you would expect for a new team. First of all, waves. The conditions out in Barcelona made it tricky for them to always get productive sailing time in. Struggled even just to get the straight lines in. Few spectacular photos coming back of them jumping out the water. And obviously had the capsize. I think that was downplayed a little bit of the time. It wasn't a sailing capsize. They were de-rigging, ready to come in ahead of the storm. But I think there was some damage to the boat when the rib was helping right it. It took a few attempts to right, and that actually saw the boat off the water for a number of days. They then also had the torn jib as well, so some bits of boat breakage which has seen them back in the shed, and maybe haven't completely maximised those extra months that they were permitted by being a new entry for this cup. Moving on, American Magic returning sailing club. They're sailing with a version 1 AC75 legacy boat. This one is Patriot, which we all know well from the Prada Cup in Auckland. So they're sailing out of Pensacola, and I must say the conditions look fantastic, really sheltered, nice bay, flat water, good for getting some early time in the water, banking some manoeuvres. As you can see, time in the water 24.7 hours, so they're already a quarter of the way to where Alinghi are, and yet they only launched on the 10th of October. Smashed in a few manoeuvres, 39 manoeuvres with a 62% kind of foiling completion rate. So pretty good numbers for a boat that's just got on the water. I must say they looked really slick from the off. Tech-wise, they done a bit more to the boat than Alinghi in terms of the alterations they're permitted to make within this kind of AC75 version 1 legacy platform. They can't really touch the foils, only small changes is allowed to them, so they're kind of stuck with their previous cup foils essentially. But they did have some nods to the new design. So they launched without backstrays. They removed the bowsprit, replaced that with kind of wind instruments. And they've gone boomerless again with that Emirates Team New Zealand setup. They've gone two steps further than Alinghi in that they've got a self-tacking jib. A few issues with the sail trim on those new self-tacking jib to begin with, but look to have rectified that towards the end of the month. And probably most noteworthy is that they've moved to cyclors. Challenges for this team, well, they're stuck on the old foil, so this isn't a platform where they can really play with the hydrodynamic and kind of interaction with the aerodynamic above it kind of platform. That's very much something you'd want an LEQ 12 to do. But what they can do on the flip side is gut Patriot, put in completely new kind of internal control systems and test them in full scale. And again, you can get the full crew on there again, so great for testing that cyclor setup and starting to think about how that's utilized. Emirates Team New Zealand, so they launched on the 20th September, starting with commissioning of an AC40, the new one design class, which will be used for the Youth and Women's America's Cup. And they have absolutely smashed the manoeuvres, 475, like many times more manoeuvres, and the success rate 95% is absolutely insane. 5 manoeuvres an hour for a kind of a brand new platform that they're commissioning is incredible start, and they're really racking up the time in the boat. Even though they're technically a month behind Alinghi, you certainly wouldn't know it from any of the stats. The tech we're seeing, well, it's the AC40 one design, so are quite a few features which are similar to their T-Rahutai in terms of like the bustle, the T-foils with blended bulb. But yeah, other than that, they've not really made any kind of changes to that, which I'd say are one of the challenges, in that they've essentially spent a month commissioning a boat for other teams to use and haven't yet done any testing themselves. We're a few days into November, and there's a few suggestions that they're all moving into converting that AC40 into an LEQ 12, where they can use it for more experimental tech testing. So it'd be interesting to see if their success rate for manoeuvres continues to be as high when they turn off the autopilot and start testing it in the next mode for the LEQ 12. Rossa, they launched towards the end of October, and LEQ 12 gives you a bit more freedom to test foil designs and obviously a new hull shapes and stuff like that. The downside that is obviously you're doing it at scale, it's not full size, and it means building a whole new boat for it. So pluses and minuses that, but they've gone for building out the new boat. Early days, only 4 days on the water to the end of October, really hampered by light winds. You can see not many manoeuvres, really low manoeuvre rate, and obviously no successful foiling manoeuvres in those first 4 days. Into November, sneak preview the next month, they did have a good couple of days sailing where they upped the manoeuvre rate and actually managed to take off with this boat without having to be towed. But they've also just dropped the mast in the boat park, so certainly not a smooth start for Rossa. They'll be disappointed with the conditions they've been given and a bit of unnecessary time off the water. In terms of interesting tech, really high aspect ratio foils may explain why they were struggling to get out the water in those light conditions. They've gone for a lot of the features from T-Rahutai, the trench deck, the exact same boomless setup that we'll see on the AC40s as well. But they are taking the opportunity to do some A/B testing. So they've got both sides of blended foils with a high aspect ratio, but they've got a T versus a slight Y, and the junctions between the flaps are a little bit different in the middle. And got these little end plating the flaps at the outer wingtip as well, which is a bit different to what we see on Emirates Team New Zealand's test boat. Yeah, I think challenges, they were yet to take off. That was rectified at the start of November. Struggled with conditions in Cagliari in terms of light winds and really maximising their time on the water. Sailing team, surprised that Bruni's only done 1 day. I mean, I guess they've only had 4 days on the water, but Spittle, Tita will be looking at those numbers of days registered on the boat, try and get an idea of who Luna Rossa's sailing team are going to be. Obviously, they pioneered the twin helmsman in the last cup, and we imagine they will go that direction again. But will it be Spittle and Bruni, or does Tita feature in there? World Sailor of Year absolutely dominated the NACRA fleet, well, for many years, but especially this year, grating them off and got a good Instagram account as well. So yeah, I'll be really looking at how the sailing team days on the water develops for Luna Rossa. Finally, last and actually also least, because they've not done any sailing, but they have splashed a boat down right at the end of October, and this is INEOS Britannia. Lots of interesting tech on display on the boat, lots of sensors, pitot tubes, built-in cameras, ride height, strain gauges, everything you can think of is basically being measured. Also got an interesting jib tack arrangement, which we talked about in the INEOS launch reaction video, possibly to change the sheeting angle of the jib using a double track rather than changing the tack of the jib or the clew board, which would be the more traditional methods to do that. Potentially a tow mast, yet to see that in action. Bit of speculation for myself, but that would be an interesting idea if they're fitted a high censored up tow mast that allows them to do tow testing on a single foil, kind of loaded up with the leeway. Foils interesting, quite high area, elliptical design, and really large flaps as well. So kind of something we've not really seen in the cup before. I'm not completely sure what's going on with their foils, but you know, maybe it's just something to do with testing and getting good test data. Challenges, well, delayed launch. They did put the boat in the 29th of October. Still no sight of a first sailing day in the diary on the Recon panel. So I'm sure they would have wanted to get this boat in the water earlier. They must be taking delivery of their AC40 soon, so any benefit of going for an LEQ12 to get extra time on the water, they've pretty much lost. There is one big benefit of an LEQ12, and it doesn't show up in the data and won't, and obviously this goes the same for Luna Rossa, but it's the employment of your resources to kind of go through the process of designing, building out a boat. It's a good exercise to build that kind of construction team, that industry around your boat, test those supply chains. So maybe a hidden benefit there, which is worth the delay. Challenges, I went through the website looking for the sailing team, and I stumbled upon their 114 design staff. I think they must have about 200 staff altogether, but yeah, that's a huge resource, but it's also a huge risk in terms of coordinating that team, making sure that those people are useful rather than distracting. Sailing team, well, obviously no one's been on the water, no one's been sailing, but just going by who's registered on their website, all returning sailors, no new signings yet. Probably from that top, we're looking 4 of those will be the sailors. So, you know, probably 1 reserve in there, maybe Mon again as a reserve for Jensen. And the grinders, all returning sailors. But these stats are their Strava stats, actually, seeing as they've not got any sailing time. and it's Hunter. And I must say, one of the most impressive things I've seen in all this research is Neil Hunter's cycling stats. So quite a few kilometers this month, but that 1,884 kilometers actually quite a light month for him. And this month November is already started off with 2 huge weeks. And I noticed he did a time of 29:48 up Sacalobra in Mallorca, a very famous testing climb for professional cyclists. And I used to do quite a lot of cycling myself, wasn't too bad as a climber. My best time up that, doing about just under 5 watts per kilo, was over 30 minutes, I think a minute more than what Neil did. So that puts him at about 5 point something watts per kilo, and I think he's in the region of 90 kilos. So this lad is probably putting out 500 watts for half an hour, which is insane numbers. And for a big lad, that's a fast time up a climb. There's professional cyclists, rollers, who don't climb that well in the professional ranks. So yeah, a bit of a freak of nature. But yeah, interesting to see how the other lads' cycling stats come on. That's the status on the ground. We're going to be updating this recon report each month, bringing you kind of the key bits of tech each team launched, whether it's new sails, new foils, new boats. So if you're interested in the design race, the knowledge race to the next cup, then this is the place to follow. One of the key things for this is, I'm your analysis team, got Rob and Tom along with me as well, helping out. But you are the Grant Dalton in this situation. You're who we're reporting into. So if you've got any questions, any avenues you'd like us to explore, pull out data on, then please let us know in the comments. I'd really like to know your thoughts on the team's strategies, bases, locations, sailing times. You direct us, and we'll do our best to deliver the goods. Hopefully be building up these dashboards over the next few months as I get my Python script in order, get the design team behind the scenes to really centralize the data and start drawing trends out of these baseline daily reports. Hopefully that provides something really interesting and insightful for you, and we can build a place to follow the cup together. So thanks for watching. See you around.